Hello and welcome to this webinar entitled Data Breaches and UK GDPR, a guide to the ICO notification requirements with me, Keith Markham. As always, let's begin by having an overview of the content of this session today. So we're going to have a look, in fact, at an overview to start with of the various guidance documents and resources that are available. We'll just go through that. And then once we've established where you can find more information after today, if you wish, we'll then go on to talk about the meaning of personal data breach. And that very much sits at the heart of everything that we're going to talk about in this session. You may have a particular understanding of personal data breach. What we're going to see is that actually, in reality, it may be in practice somewhat wider than your initial conception. So we'll look at what that means. We'll look at various possibilities and what's encompassed by that. Afterwards, we'll then go on to see that if we have an example of a personal data breach, you may be required to notify the regulator, the Information Commissioner's Office, the ICO. You may also be required, in some cases, to communicate what has happened to the data subjects who have been affected. Now, that varies and depends on essentially a risk assessment that we'll be looking at how we carry that out. And we'll then see the procedural requirements, particularly in terms of how we notify the ICO, which very much sits at the heart of this session today, and so on. Now, as part of that, we will note as well that we do have, if we are controllers particularly, we have responsibilities in terms of accountability and record keeping, and we'll look at what those are and how you can comply with that in practice. But having gone through all of that, we will then effectively look at a scenario. So I will give you a couple of slides that describe a particular personal data breach, and then what I'll do is I'll work my way through methodically the various elements of the Information Commissioner's breach reporting form. Now, at that point, you may actually prefer, having been told where you can find that form, to download the form, complete it yourself, and then compare it with my particular musings later on. But it's entirely up to you. I'll remind you about that when we get to the scenario.